All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Lisa Partida with Homemaking LA, and if Harvard had a
We lost you. Oh, you're back.
sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Did I just like freeze?
Yeah, you froze. That's okay.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and get started. I'll say hi with video
Thank
on,
you.
but then I'll turn it off so that we're not stuttering.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and turn my video off. Yeah, so tonight's workshop is going to be disasters, financial preparation and recovery, and preparing for disasters. So we're going to identify ways that disasters can create financial challenges, identify ways to prepare financially for disasters, including getting insurance, setting money aside in an emergency fund, keeping cash in a safe place, signing up for direct deposit, considering online or mobile banking, and keeping financial documents in a safe place. The key takeaway from our first section is going to be save time, money, and stress when a disaster strikes by making financial preparations ahead of time. So, first off, we need to talk about what are some examples of disasters. Um, think of things like natural disasters, maybe earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. There's other disasters too, though, including sometimes referred to as human-made disasters. We can think of things in terms of maybe terrorism or fires or hazardous material incidences and things like that. No matter the type of disaster, each one may interrupt the lives of individuals and families. And most certainly, disasters can cause strain in a multitude of different ways, including mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially. So the whole idea of what we're trying to be prepared for is that, the more that we can know, the more we can be prepared, when a disaster strikes, if it was. And we're doing this for the purpose of making sure that we can handle these situations and reduce strain when they come up. Um, so how specifically do disasters affect our finances, right? So, um, cost of meeting immediate needs when they are not available from the usual sources. A disaster could affect the availability of food, water, shelter, or a lot of other basic needs as well. Disaster relief programs may not have these available immediately, depending on the disaster that we're talking about. Cost of repairing and replacing items. Insurance and disaster relief programs may not be able to cover everything. Timing matters. You may need to cover replacement costs of some necessary items before you receive the aid. There may be costs associated with replacing important documents such as birth certificates, passports, or driver's license. Ongoing costs of items you need as a result of the disaster. These might include physical or mental health services. Sometimes services are provided for free shortly after disaster, but eventually you'll have to pay for them out of your own pocket. Identity theft, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that take advantage of us at our lowest points, after a disaster strikes. The disaster may have resulted in others having access to your personal financial information, or they may just be so malicious to try to scam us. Um, Scams that target people who have survived certain disasters are an unfortunate reality of life. Access to financial resources, disaster might result in the loss of identification documents that you use to gain easy access to your financial resources. Like you need to do a withdrawal from the bank from your checking account, but if you don't have the proper identification, you may not have access to your funds. You may have lost or forgotten account numbers or access codes. Your debit cards, credit cards, and checks could have been damaged, and it could take a long time for you to get replacements for them. Even though financial institutions will work with you to help you resolve these situations, there might certainly be a delay in it. And then there's also the cost and penalties of missing payments or falling behind in your bills that could happen as well. If a disaster occurs, the government and disaster relief organizations most certainly will try to help. It may take some time to get to you, so you need to be prepared as well. And as we started this workshop, the whole idea is, preparing for disasters can help reduce the fear and anxiety, when they happen. Prepare in advance for disasters. Ready.gov is a great place to prepare more generally for disasters. I encourage you to visit the site after the workshop today. Let's consider ways to prepare financially for a disaster. Keep in mind, though, no one is going to be, 100% prepared. I wish we could, but it's just not the reality. We'll talk about some actions that you can take to be prepared financially. Things like get the insurance that you need, set aside money in an emergency fund, keep cash in a safe place. You may want to sign up for direct deposit if you're still receiving your paycheck via physical check in the mail. Consider signing up for a direct deposit. The money is directly deposited into your account and available immediately without the fear of it going on a hold, for example. Keep financial documents in a safe place. Let's start with the insurance. So, insurance is a critical support layer after a disaster. Um, but you obviously need to have that insurance before the disaster strikes, right? So having insurance can reduce the financial impact of a disaster when you have a covered loss. It's important to have the right insurance coverage and shop around for the best deal. And let me just add as well, periodically make sure that you have the correct coverage for where you're at in your life. Meaning, you may not think otherwise because you had the same car for 5 or 10 years, but when you get a new one, you may need to change the limits. And you'll be able to look at that by looking at your policy. Let's use home ownership policy as an example. So the typical homeowner's insurance policy does not cover damage caused by floods and earthquakes. So it may be prudent to purchase the extra cover required. So the whole idea is making sure that you have the coverage for where you're at in your life at the time for what you're trying to cover. Keep records of your personal property, including estimated value of the things that you own. It may be required sometimes when you have to file an insurance claim. It's not always the case, but it could be. Consider taking photos of some of the valuables so that you have a visual log of them. You can also visit the National Association of Insurance Commissioners at insuranceonline.org. If you search inventory, there's a useful inventory list that you can use to log your personal items. Um, let's talk about types of insurance. So, what are different types of insurance? Um, the first one is car insurance. So coverages vary. I already gave like the tip of making sure that your policy is up to date to make sure that you have the correct coverages. And generally speaking, auto insurance is required by law. It could be liability coverage, it could be full coverage, or what's known as comprehensive coverage, which would help to pay for damages if you got into a wreck or if like your car got stolen or was vandalized. Um, but just remember, depending on the policy that you choose, whether it be liability or comprehensive, because we're specifically talking about disasters, we want to make sure that you have the correct amount of insurance to cover that in case of a covered loss. There's also disability insurance. Disability insurance protects you from financial hardship if you suffer an illness or an injury. that keeps you out of work. There's also life insurance that provides financial protection for loved ones in case you die. That also can include other benefits as well. There's also renter's insurance. That's insures your personal property in case of damage or loss if you're a renter. There's also homeowner's insurance, which we briefly talked about. Remember, typically flood and earthquake insurance is not rolled into that, but typically insures your home and personal property against damage or loss. The coverage limit should include the value of significant upgrades that you've made on your home. Um, Homeowners insurance and renters insurance don't always cover expensive items such as maybe like electronic wheelchairs or accessibility devices. So you may need to have supplemental coverage in that case. I'm going to show you what we have that you'll see in the participant guide. This is what we refer to as an apply it section that you can by all means check out after our workshop. But essentially, this is going to be what types of insurance do I need? And the reason that we're going to fill this out after the workshop is we're going to have a better understanding of like key terms and things that will help in filling out these exercises. But the other important thing to consider too is that we're all different and not all going to have the same types of insurance just based on, being different and having different needs in our life, right? So some things may not be applicable, but essentially, you can use this table in the participant guide to refer to the different types of insurances that we kind of already verbally discussed. Um, and what you're going to do is you're going to fill this out in a table. Now, this is useful in a few different ways. One, you're going to be able to identify the insurance that you have and maybe the insurance that you need. The other thing I want you to do when you're filling this table out is I want you to look at the policy limits of the insurance that you have to make sure that it's still current. Because just like I kind of used the car as an example, we want to make sure as life rolls on, year over year, uh, after 5 years, after 10 years, that we don't need more coverage because maybe the value of our car is different because we bought a new car or we've made upgrades to our home and things like that. So I want to make sure that you have the correct amount of coverage, okay? And here's the third reason of why we're doing this. This idea of shopping around, and my wife and I did this recently, and it was specifically with automobile insurance. Our policy was about to be up, um, and I was in the process of getting a different car. And what we did was we started shopping around. We actually got a far better deal, and we had been with, I believe our previous one was Progressive. We were with them forever. But then went and got another quote from AAA, and it ended up being a significantly cheaper amount for that auto insurance. And then we were able to bundle the auto insurance with the homeowner's insurance. Anyway, so that's why we're going to have you fill this out. One, identifying the kind of insurance you have, or maybe you realize, well, oh man, I don't have insurance for that, right? Making sure that the coverage limits are up to date, and then shopping around to see if you can get a better deal on whatever it is that you're insuring, right? When unexpected events like disasters occur, you can use your emergency savings fund to deal with them, right? Having an emergency savings can make you feel more resilient. You'll be better able to like bounce back when bad things happen. You'll be able to recover from a disaster more quickly because you can more easily pay for some things that are important to your recovery. When you pay for unexpected expenses with money that you've saved, you can avoid creating debt by being forced to like maybe use a credit card or take a loan out for whatever it is that you're trying to replace or recover from. Being prepared for the unexpected can give you peace of mind as well, both before a disaster has occurred and following the disaster. Building an emergency savings fund. So you may have heard of an emergency savings fund, and a lot of different people have different opinions on it. But when you come to think about it as you're trying to build a fund that should have about 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved in it, um, it's a big deal. It can certainly be a big deal when you start doing the math of it. But it's important to kind of understand too that it's not impossible to reach because a little bit of savings can build up to be a lot, especially if you have a savings account that's paying you interest. But I think the most important thing, because it can seem daunting, is that realizing that a small amount can make a big difference too. And what I mean by that is start saving 100 at first and then have your next goal be 500 and then maybe have your next goal be 1,000. I like to think about it in terms like this because I kind of think that this is setting a realistic goal um, that can get you kind of motivated and get the ball rolling, if you will, to get you into that cycle of kind of, okay, I can do this. And when you slowly start to build, 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 I think it's going to give you the financial, how would I say it? Like the financial health and wherewithal to know that, hey, you know what? I can do this and build upon this to create the stability that I'm going to need. Um, we also want to keep cash in a safe place. An emergency savings fund is obviously going to be important for bouncing back after a disaster, but what about meeting your needs immediately after a disaster? So it's especially important if you cannot access your emergency funds right away. In the event of a disaster, for a period of time, you may only be able to pay for everyday purchases with cash. That can happen, for example, if the electricity is temporarily out in your community, or perhaps your credit card, debit card, or checks were damaged or just unavailable to you. When choosing where to keep your emergency cash, consider ease of access in case of a disaster, but also make sure that it's safe and secure. The cash isn't helpful if it's not there when you need it. Keep some cash in a safe place where you can have access to it quickly, especially if you're required to evacuate. Consider storing cash in a fire-resistant, waterproof, locked box in your house or a safe that has a key or combination. Use the cash to cover cost until you can use other forms of payment. You may also want to keep some cash in a larger emergency kit with supplies for several days. Like if you have a go bag in case you're evacuated in case of an emergency, you can do that as well. Um, but uh, just remember the most secure place to keep it is going to be your financial institution, not only because the cash can't be lost, stolen, or damaged in case of a disaster, but remember you have that federal deposit insurance from the FDIC insurance up to $250,000 in your checking account. So remember that too. You also want to make sure that you sign up for direct deposit. And it could be, your paycheck from your employer, it could be your pension benefits, could be public benefits. Um, in a disaster, taking care of simple things like depositing a check can be absolutely overwhelming. In addition, um, a disaster may make it more difficult for you to pick up your mail at your home because your home could be damaged or the streets may be blocked. But the nice thing with direct deposit is that it goes directly to your financial institution and it's available to use. Consider arranging online and mobile banking if you haven't already. It can be super helpful because it doesn't require you to physically go into a bank branch, right? Online and mobile banking usually allows for the payment of bills, deposit checks, transfers between accounts, payments to other people or entities. With online or mobile access, you can also communicate electronically with your financial institution. So definitely make sure that you're either signed up for electronic banking with access over a tablet or a computer, or make sure that you have the app to your financial institution installed on your phone. Keep financial documents and information in a safe place. Having access to personal financial insurance, medical, and other records is super crucial. Ideas for places to store important hard copies and financial documents can include at home in a waterproof bag kept in a fire-resistant box or a safe box, or a safe rather, sorry about that, in a go bag that we talked about earlier, or maybe a safe deposit box at the bank. If you are using a safe deposit box, you can ask your financial institution who can and cannot access the safe deposit box if the person the box belongs to dies or is incapacitated. You can also check state law to confirm that information. You can also consider scanning records in and saving them electronically. If you have electronic financial information, consider keeping it on a password protected flash drive or an external flash drive, for an example, or on an offsite data storage service as well, like maybe Google Drive or Box or something like that. Emergency financial first aid kit. The Federal Emergency Management, or FEMA, agency advises people to prepare an emergency financial first aid kit. FEMA's online materials include checklists and forms to help you prepare. FEMA recommends the types of documents you should keep in a safe place and what information should be on it. You can go to FEMA.gov and you can download the kit. And it basically is for the purpose of strengthening your financial preparedness, in case of a disaster or an emergency. Okay, so that brings us to section one's closing, and the key takeaway is save time, money, and stress when a disaster strikes by making financial preparations. And in section two, we're going to cover recovering financially from disasters. We're going to talk about actions that help with financial recovery from disasters, including actions related to your property other than your home, but also your home, your income or your job, bills, expenses, money, know where to get help recovering financially from disasters, being able to spot scams that target people recovering from disasters, and know how to start adjusting the financial picture after disaster. Okay, so we're going to discuss how to recover financially, develop an initial plan to recover financially from a disaster, and then how to watch out for scams. So after a disaster, your first priority is making sure that you and your loved ones are safe and secure, obviously. There may be injuries that need immediate attention. You may need to find temporary shelter and secure food, water, batteries, chargers, hearing aids, mobility devices, medications, those things that are considered vital necessities, right? If you visit disasterassistance.gov, you can get more information on how to respond to or recover from disasters that may impact your community at large. We are focused in this training on the steps that you can take to recover financially from disasters after you have addressed basic safety and security needs. So steps on recovering financially. Um, so we have, again, property, home, income, bills, and protecting your money. So as far as property, what would you do if your property were damaged in a disaster, right? What would you do if your home were damaged in a disaster? What would you do if you couldn't work because of a disaster? What steps would you take to cover your bills and expenses after a disaster? Um, both immediately and in the long-term sense, right? What steps would you take to keep your money secure? What if you lose some or all of it, right? So as far as property, um, assess and document damage in writing and with photos if a disaster occurs. You want to make sure that you're contacting your insurance providers about the damage, and you want to do so in a timely manner as well so that you can file a claim. Find a safe place to store cash and valuables that you took from your home. Arrange for alternative transportation if you use a car or other vehicle to get to work that was damaged. Find out how you can repair, replace, or borrow replacements for any assistive technology that might have been damaged. This can include mobility devices, speaking devices, hearing aids, or specialized computer equipment. Your home, continue making housing payments or contact uh, the lender or landlord as soon as possible if you don't expect to be able to make your payments. They may be able to offer some flexibility, so you never know. It's important to do this to avoid or at least limit the negative information that might be reported on your credit report. Assess and document damage in writing and with photos. Again, contact insurance providers about the damage to your home. And you can do so whether you're renting or you're an owner, right? If you have renter's insurance. Contact your landlord about damage to your home if you rent. And then you can get help from a Department of Housing and Urban Development certified housing counseling agency in your area. HUD sponsors housing counseling agencies throughout the country that can provide you with advice and other support. And trust me, there's a lot of them out there. Um, the bank I work for, Bank of Hope, has a lot of partnerships with these types of organizations, and they can be super helpful and offer the services free of charge. Income/job, contact your employer to inform them of your situation. Contact your benefits provider if you receive public benefits or pension benefits, including disability benefits. Give them your new address if it's applicable. If necessary, they can cancel any checks that they sent to an address that you can no longer reach because of a disaster. Keep track of how many days of work you missed because of the disaster and how much money you would have earned. Also, keep track of how many days you're unable to live at home due to the disaster. It could be relevant for tax and insurance purposes. Like, for example, an insurance policy may include a loss of use provision that covers expenses you had to pay because you were not able to live in your home. You lost the use of the home due to the disaster, so that may be a clause in your policy. Care for your service animal and repair assistive technology if necessary, so you can resume work after the disaster. Contact your disability insurance provider if applicable. Explore public benefits that you may now be eligible for. Visit benefits.gov or disasterassistance.gov to get started. If there were fatalities, contact the life insurance provider to file a claim. Um, Bills/expenses. Continue paying your bills. Paying late or not at all can result in fees, interest charges, and damage to your credit score. Contact the post office and let them know where to deliver mail. Contact your financial institution to find out flexibility, um, or at least whatever support they might be able to offer you. Contact your creditors, utility companies, credit card companies, any loan providers that you have. Make sure that they have current contact information and mailing address in the result of the disaster. Discuss your situation and if they can offer any flexibility if you have any upcoming payments. You never know until you ask. Keep records of what you spend as you recover from the disaster and save receipts. Assistance programs or insurance company may reimburse you for some, if not all, of the expenses in some circumstances. Access to assistance programs. There could be shelter, food, or organizations that are helping with basic necessities in the result of a disaster. Protecting your money. Get and review your free credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Look for any errors that indicate that your identity might have been stolen. Um, Contact financial institutions and let them know maybe if you lost checks or had checks damaged or your ATM card or debit card or your credit card was lost or stolen or damaged. Contact the DMV if you need to get a new license because it was damaged or it was lost. Find a safe place for the financial information, cash, and valuables that you took with you if you were evacuated, and contact the post office again. Be proactive if you have any issues with companies as you recover from a disaster. First, contact the company directly. If that doesn't produce the desired results, contact the appropriate federal or state regulatory agency for help or guidance. Um, there's also in the participant guide in this apply it section is steps to financial recovery, and it's on page 12 of the participant guide. Um, you're going to write down ideas you remember from the workshop, from notes that you might have taken on how you can recover. And again, this is going to go over those same things that we just verbally uh, covered, including property, home, income, bills, expenses, and then protecting my money. Let's talk about getting help. There's a wide variety of organizations that can help you recover from disasters. Um, just remember that there's no single organization that does it all. And again, that's why there's so many agencies, NGOs, NPOs, nonprofit organizations, and why they have, that expertise in that service and that program that they offer. Um, so essentially what I mean is that you should plan, to seek help from a variety of different sources for the most part. We're going to review some of the sources for disaster recovery. It's of course not a comprehensive list, but at least I think it's a good place to start. Um, so where to get more information on help? If you go to page 18 in the participant guide, it's going to list some resources there. You can check that out after the workshop today. Um, Firstly, we have disasterassistance.gov. It's a website that lists disaster assistance information from federal, tribal, state, local, and private sector partners. By entering some details about your situation, you can view a list of programs and resources that might help. There's also FEMA that we already kind of mentioned, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Um, these centers are also important resources to connect you to disaster recovery help. Disaster recovery centers are accessible facilities and mobile offices you can visit to learn more about disaster assistance programs. Disaster assistance organizations often hold disaster relief and recovery meetings. The meetings can connect you to important information about disaster assistance. Donations and supplies may also be distributed at these meetings. Find out about these meetings and be sure to attend or send someone in your place. FEMA disaster recovery centers are likely to know the dates, times, and places of these types of meetings. Financial recovery resources. Now let's review a few resources that are especially important for financial recovery. So as I mentioned earlier, start with disasterassistance.gov. It's the central place to learn about, disaster assistance, but also disaster assistance loans and programs. FEMA manages the Individuals and Households program, which offers financial assistance to eligible individuals and households. Also, the Small Business Administration, the SBA, the SBA provides low interest, long-term disaster loans to repair or replace uninsured or underinsured property damaged in a disaster. They provide these loans to businesses of all sizes, private, nonprofit organizations as well, homeowners and renters. SBA disaster loans offer an affordable way for individuals and businesses to recover from disasters. There's also the Department of Agriculture, which provides loans for the recovery of homes, businesses, and farms. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, and we already mentioned this, those approved housing counseling agencies that are throughout the country provide advice on buying a home, renting, defaults, foreclosures, and credit issues. You can find one in your local area by visiting HUD.gov, find a counselor. And remember that these services are provided at no cost to you. The Home Ownership Preservation Foundation sponsors the Home Preservation Hotline. You can go to 995hope.gov as another resource as well. And we kind of already talked about this in the beginning, but it's really sad to think that, when we're at our lowest, when a disaster could strike, that people would want to take advantage of us, but there's scams out there, unfortunately. Not everyone who offers help during a disaster is a legitimate source of help, unfortunately. So you have to be on the lookout for scams by people who are trying to take advantage of you in this situation. Protect yourself by being cautious. Be selective when you hire or accept help. Scammers could be posing as home repair contractors. They could be posing as fake charities or other organizations involved in disaster relief efforts. In order to avoid scams, you want to get and check references. Ask to see state or local permits from home repair contractors or other professionals. Don't pay a contractor in full up front before they finish all the work that you hired them to do, especially on big jobs like home repairs. Get and keep receipts, and don't pay for services that you could get for free. Remember, we already mentioned um, that some agencies will provide services free of charge. There are more tips to avoid scams. So research organizations you are not familiar with. You can ask for local references. You can also read about others' experience with the company through online ratings, for example, or review sites. Protect your information. Avoid sharing your social security number, bank account information, or personal information. If someone asks you to share that information, ask them, why do you need it? Um, Make sure that you're protecting your identity and that kind of information. Always keep your personal and financial information in a safe place. Stop or forward your mail if you're unable to pick it up. Monitor your credit report. We already kind of talked about that, right? Credit reporting agencies, often called the credit bureaus or credit reporting agencies. Remember, they're TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Pull that free credit report that you get on the annual basis at annualcreditreport.com. You can also, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, there's scam alerts that you can review on their website. You can go to consumer.ftc.gov and go to the scam alert section, and they have a log of them. We have this try it section. Please check this out after the workshop. This is how to spot red flags. We have this scenario presented to us with Phyllis. Um, Phyllis just bought her house. Unfortunately, the roof was severely damaged. It happened in a recent storm that happened to be declared a disaster. Um, so Phyllis has someone knock on her door. inquiring about the damage, Phyllis asked for references. The contractor said that the company has done work for others in the neighborhood and would be happy to email Phyllis the information. Check this out. I think this is a good section, not only in the case of disaster, but just red flags in general when you have big jobs being done, whether that be like for your home or your car, for example. I think this is a good scenario on how to spot red flags. Um, but essentially, we don't have it all listed here, but the first question that we're asked after we read the scenario is, if you were Phyllis, would you hire this person? Why or why not? Anyway, check that out. You can answer the questions after reading the full scenario. Adjusting your financial picture after a disaster. So many of the ideas that we discussed relate to, days immediately following the disaster. But after those days are past and you're now in a more stable situation, you're going to need to make adjustments to your finances as a result, right? So for example, the disaster may have affected your income. You may have new ongoing financial obligations as a result of the disaster, such as medical debt or a mortgage for a home where you unfortunately no longer live. So here are some things you can do to adjust your financial picture. Um, Most obviously, I think, is time to settle into the new reality, unfortunately, right? Even if you made financial preparations before the disaster, your financial situation may be very different than it was before the disaster occurred. Review your household spending and savings plan and adjust it if necessary. Contact your lenders and work with them if you're having difficulty paying your debts due to the disaster. Contact your financial institution and ask them if there's any programs or initiatives that can help support your recovery. Get and review your credit report. We've already talked about that at annualcreditreport.com. You may have to adjust and set new goals and make a new plan as a result of the disaster as well. Um, so that actually brings us to the close of this section and actually to the close of the workshop. For the close of our section, remember developing an initial plan to recover financially from a disaster is going to be super helpful if it occurs. And then, what to do to watch out for scams and where to go to look out for scams at that FTC website. Um, it does bring us to our end. Let me turn my camera back on. I'd be happy to answer any questions that may have come up through our discussion. But please remember to check out those sections in the participant guide that can further kind of the information and the key terms that we went over for the workshop this afternoon.
Thanks, Tom. I don't see any questions in the chat or anything unless somebody wants to unmute themselves.
Yeah, unfortunately, this topic is kind of um, semi-fresh, right? We had the LA wildfires that happened, and we're still obviously in recovery mode for that. So it's important to think about these kind of things because we sometimes don't think that it'll happen to us, and then unfortunately it does. And then, what do we do?
Yeah, I agree. So what I
Thank you
was
for all the
actually
information. Good
Oh, yeah,
information. Thank you
no
for it.
worries.
So I mean, what I was just trying to say was the fact that I was actually really impressed and surprised when, after the whole incidents happened with the fires, I went to an event and I was surprised that you mentioned, or actually not surprised because I've heard this one before, but SBA is a really good resource for renters or anybody who's recovering, any businesses or homeowners.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. When I saw them there, I was like, wow, this is really cool stuff. So, yeah, do your research, make sure that you reach out to those agencies that are out there to help you guys. Stay alert and always be on the
Yep.
lookout. All right. Okay. Well, I guess that'll be it for tonight. Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate you and your time.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming,
Thank
and I
you.
hope that was helpful. And we'll see you next week, I believe. So have a good
Oh, yeah.
week.
Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you,
Bye.
Thomas.
Bye.